Hey everybody. Get started here in a few minutes, just let other people filter in, and I'll explain the agenda for today. If anybody's in chat, just let me know how everything looks and sounds. I want to make sure everything's good. Hey Amtrak fan, how you doing, buddy? Southeastern Mass Rail fan, how's it going? Ocean State Rail fan. Hey Kelvin. Sweet. Thanks for the feedback. Glad everything looks and sounds good. As you can see, some scenery got started in this area. Whoever started doing this area, it looks great. Good job. I think Evan said he's going to be joining the stream today, right? Alright, cool. So it's 3 o'clock on the dot. What I'm going to do today is, I promised to do this a little while ago, it just never got around to it. But it's time to do the track elevations. So up to this point, the entire route has had its track laid on a completely flat and level surface. That's to make it easier to do more precise track laying, because you don't have to worry about terrain getting in the way or all the slopes and all that messing with the precision track laying. So now that the track is all laid and precise, we need to adjust the heights. We're going to be referencing official Amtrak documentation. At the bottom here, you will see, well, not the very bottom, but this gradient section, you will see lines going up and down and different values, lines in random places or seemingly random places. And I'm going to explain what all of this means. So we're starting right about here, right before this curve at milepost 93. So before we get into the curve, which is represented by this 0.06, this right here, it's mostly level. It's going downhill at a 0.06 percentage. That's the unit of measurement inside the game, percentage. The gradients can be represented in different ways, but percentage is the most common that I've known. So, the shitty thing about this game is that it doesn't go into 2 decimal points over just 1 decimal point. So you can't really get that crazy precision, so I can't do exactly 0.06. I just gotta kind of guess and have it kind of work out. So we're going to be doing precise work as we can, but it's not all going to be perfect. Nothing is when it comes to this. At these points, this is what is known as a vertical curve. So when the track is transitioning from different gradients, that transition is represented as a vertical curve. So vertical curve start, vertical curve end. So you can approximate how long that transition is from, in this case, going downhill at 0.06% to going downhill at 0.32%. You're going downhill more once you transition at this point. Make sense? All right. So the first step is to figure out exactly where it starts to transition and where it ends the transition. It ends the transition right about at the curve, where the curve starts, and it just so happens that we have a gradient change point here because of the welds at the beginning of the curve. You're always going to have, well, for the most part, you're going to have a gradient adjustment point at weld points. So that's convenient. We're going to use that as our vertical curve transition end. And I already laid a vertical curve transition start. This is all approximate, nothing is exact. I'm just looking at the charts and kind of guessing where these things are starting and ending. So the next step is to figure out, well, these charts, they don't say like if this is 100 feet or 90 feet or 80 feet or whatever. How do you know? There's just these lines here. That's where Google Earth comes in. So if I open up Google Earth and I get to this area, this is right before the curve. If I look down here, we're right at about 89 feet. At the very bottom right of Google Earth, if you have the terrain option turned on over here, you'll get height readings. It's not perfect, but it's a really great guide to go off of. So 89 feet. We go back to the charts. This line indicating the track slope is really, really, really close, if not like almost on point, with this horizontal rule. So we can assume that this horizontal line referenced in the charts is indicative of 90 feet above sea level, okay? And it makes sense, because that track elevation line is just below it at this point, so 89 feet sounds accurate to me. What you gotta remember is that the game does not use feet, it uses meters, so you have to have that conversion ready to go. In this case, at the transition point, it is at 27.12 meters, which is what I have set all of these to. I will show you a very neat trick in a little bit for how to get all of these points to be at the exact same height instead of manually dragging everything up and down, which can cause some irregularities. Alright? So we have our start of the vertical curve transition, and we have our end. So how do we slope it? Alright. This is going to be... It takes a lot of getting used to. It's not really intuitive. So use your select tool, and I'm going to go right before the transition here. Oops. One sec. You got to kind of remember where the points are, because they disappear when you use the select tool. Just going to click and drag to select all these tracks. I'm going to go all the way down to just before the weld. So now there's a button called Smooth Gradient, and if you tick it, you'll notice the track went down a little bit. And if you open up your gradient tool, you'll see a lot more points now. So these are little changes to smooth out that transition. Alright? So if I move my mouse down the track, actually, I skipped a step. Before we can do that, before we can actually smooth the transition, you got to make sure that both sides are actually at their proper height. So I made sure that this side was good at 27.12. Now, what is it over here at the end of the transition? Alright, let's look at the chart. So, at the end of the transition, it's gone down a little bit. Something like, I don't know, I'm gonna guess 89.5 feet. Or something. You can just take a stab at it. Or 88.5 feet, sorry, or something like that. So 26.9. How do I get all of these to be 26.9? I'll show you an awesome trick, and it involves manipulating the terrain. So go to your painting tools, go to level. Remember, the value we're looking for the track is 26.9. It is? Yeah, 26.9 meters. When you snap track to terrain, the track is always going to be 0.5 meters above the terrain, so you can use that to your advantage. 26.9 minus 0.5 is 26.4. So if I set the terrain height to 26.4, and then just go around the area and make sure it's all the same height right at those welds. Now go back, open up those gradient adjustment points, left click and press L, and that hotkey or that shortcut will snap a point to terrain. So now if I close that and just hover over him, look at, you might not be able to see it because it's really small text at the bottom, but it says height 26.9 of that point. And you can hover over all the points and verify that that is now the correct height. Okay. Yeah, so let's try now getting this to smooth properly. So I gotta find my start transition, select tool, go down to here, and smooth gradient. Let's see if that did what I wanted. If not, we're gonna have to try a different method. This is not intuitive to me at all. Even though I did all of it for Washington to Baltimore, it's still something that always screws with me. Alright, here we go. So, this is pretty cool. So before we transition to going downhill even more, you can see that the gradient is 0.1%, which is, give or take, close enough to 0.06 referenced in the docs. Hey Evan, thanks for joining us. So what we've covered so far is just what we're doing today and the basics, starting from the very beginning. I'm going to go through all the steps a couple times as we progress. So we're at the vertical curve transition point, and before we transition to go steeper downhill, we're going downhill at 0.1% approximately. So once we hit that point, if I keep my mouse hovered over the track and keep moving it down, you'll see that the height of that track is going down, so 27.04, 0.3, 0.2, and now you can see at this point it's going downhill at 0.2%, sorry. And it's continuing to get steeper. 26.96, 0.95, 0.94, it keeps ticking down. And now at this point, it's going to be going at a constant downhill slope. Problem is, we need it to be going downhill at 0.3, not 0.2. So, and I say 0.3 because that's the next value in the documents. At that point, it should now be going downhill at 0.32%. Alright? So we're going to get it as close as we can to 0.3. I really wish they went into other decimal positions, not just 1. I need that precision. Alright. Sorry, I was just taking a sip of my water. So what we're going to do is we're going to undo and then clear up any nonsense. That looks like it actually was good. And we're going to lower these a bit further because we want to get at this point to be 0.3 going downhill, if we can. So going back to the terrain, we're going to lower this a little bit more, just by 1/10 of a meter. Just lower that a little bit more. Left click on these points, press L, bring it down a little bit more. And now if I hover over this point right here, it is at 0.3 now. Excellent. So let's smooth it out. Right before them, select tool. Bring those down right before the welds. Smooth gradient button. Check our work. Gradually going downhill, and it hits 0.3. That might be a little steep. We'll test it out, but it's close enough. Okay. So that's our first one done for now. We'll test it out in a little bit. Hey, Two Gun. So he's asking, how far are you from Baltimore? So right now, we have all the mainline track done all the way to Philadelphia 30th Street. This is at milepost 93 where Washington to Baltimore route ends and we continued the track work. Yeah, so in this stream, what I'm doing is teaching the other developers how to do the track elevations, because we're at that point now. And yeah, the scenery has been started too, so some people have been contributing to the scenery. This was not in Washington, Baltimore, so this is all new stuff. Hey Pixelate, how you doing, man? Frosty Train Films, what's up? Thanks for joining. Alright, so we have this one done for now. You can always come back later and tweak things if when you do your playtesting. And I did hours of playtesting for Washington to Baltimore to make sure that the track was smooth and that all the transitions and elevations were smooth. You gotta do all that testing. So the sooner we can get this kind of stuff done, all the slopes, and that more people can probably start doing some beta testing, in a sense, running over the route in all directions, making diverging movements at interlockings, and see if there are any like noticeable bumps or just jolts and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get the route to you guys. Okay, I rambled on a little bit too much. So if we look back at the track docs, the track maintains this downward gradient of 0.32 up until this, yeah, approximately this point. It's kind of hard to decipher. So that point, if I scroll up, is between the Mountain Street and Crescent Street undergrade bridges. So basically you don't want any more gradient changes at all until that point. It's not always going to be possible, because at the end of the curve we actually have a weld point with gradient adjustments, which is fine. We know that it needs to go, the track needs to continue downhill at a rate of 0.32%. So what we'll do is we'll look at the charts to get an approximate value of what that value might be, and then we'll look at Google Earth, and then we'll take a guess, try it out, and see if the numbers work out. You can also do some math. I don't know if you guys remember this from school, rise over run. So you'd get the distance of the track and then do some math to get whether the original height and the new height over that distance is equal to 0.32, but I'm not bothering with that right now. I don't want to do math. I don't like it all that much, but it is useful. Alright, so we already assumed that this line is indicative of 90 feet, and I'm assuming that this line right below it is 80 feet. If I draw a line down here, it looks like it's at about 86 feet, and we can check that in Google Earth. So if I go to the end of the curve here, let me turn on the overlay in game just to see exactly where I am. Okay. Dark grass. Okay. Oh, in this one it's brown, but whatever, same thing. Okay, so this is saying 82 feet. That's a big difference. So what that could mean, and what it probably does mean, is that this line actually means 70. And we can confirm that, because right at that point, the track crosses that line. And that would be a little way into the next curve. So let's go into Google Earth. Go down to the next curve, and approximately here. Yep, right here, 70 feet. So that line is at 70 feet. So you have a 20-foot differential between that line and that line. Yeah, yeah, that equation, Evan. Y2 minus y1 over x2. Yeah, basically rise over run, right? Anyway. So 82 feet makes sense, because if you drew a line about halfway, that's approximately halfway, that would be 80 feet, and then it's a little above that, so 82, I'm totally cool with that number. Plug that in here, we get 25 meters even. So what I'm going to do, remember the elevation trick, so if we're trying to get the track at 25 meters even, we're going to lay the terrain, or adjust the terrain to be 24.5. Because the track will always snap to half a meter above what you set the terrain to. We're going to bring that down. Get back to our weld points. And we're going to left click and snap. Left click. Press L to snap, by the way. And let's just take a look at that result. So if I hover over the track right here, you can... It's small text, mind you, but it is at 25 meters, and the gradient is 0.3, which is exactly what we're looking for. Great. Let's snap the rest. You might notice sometimes that when you do click a gradient point, that it doesn't select both sides of the gradient of the track from that gradient point. It'll just select one side. Not a problem. Just click the gradient tool, go all the way to the end of the track. It'll snap, kinda. Left click, just press L, and everything will come back together. Alright? So now from here, I can go into the painting tools and just pretty it up a little bit with the snap to track tool, and yeah, I'll just use a brush of that size, that's fine. Just do a light dusting over it. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. We'll do a little bit more, and then we will do some testing. I think track 3 is the one super elevated right now, so we'll play with that one. Alright, let me save. Any questions right now while that's saving? Kinda getting how this is going so far. Have a sip of my tea. Got some hot tea again today. Okay, I'll keep an eye on the screen for any questions that may pop in. So, we're still continuing downhill at 0.32%. Let me clean this up a little bit, because we already know these values. 70, 90, yeah, blah, blah, blah. We need to find this point, because it's hard to see. Oh, shit. Alright, there we go. Kind of blacked out on me. It's kind of hard to see, but at this point, and you can see it based on this line too, another vertical curve starts. But I highly doubt that the vertical curve goes all the way over there. This is just a slight adjustment. And it doesn't even... No, actually... I may have to take those words back. It could be that long of an adjustment to go downhill at 1.05%, and then right here it starts gradually sloping back. We could go with that. Okay. We can even check out some of the stuff in the video. That's a good idea. So what we're going to do is we're going to keep an eye out for right before this curve, it's starting to really slope down further. So where am I? Washington to Philly. So we'll get through this curve. Alright, so right before the next curve, we should start seeing it slope down even more. So keep an eye out for how the track looks. I know it's kind of hard to see, but I can definitely see it sloping down even more. Right about there, I'm noticing it transitioning even steeper downhill. And then based on the track documents, it's going to start coming back up a bit. So there's a brief period where it is going downhill at 1%. Very difficult to tell, though. Alright, let's try to replicate it. First, we need to figure out exactly where this point is. We say right before the curve, but we don't really know what that means. So I can get a rough estimate by just hovering over that point and then using my mouse wheel to scroll up, and it shows up right between these two overhead, or undergrade, bridges. Monument Street and Crescent Street. So this is where Google Earth will come in handy. So where's Monument Street and where is that other street? I forget the name already. Crescent Street. I wish Google Earth was better at showing me the frickin' names of streets. How far out do I have to zoom to? Alright, so Monument Street is that left to right street. And then I'm assuming this other one is Crescent Street. Okay. So it's telling me, the track charts are telling me that right at about this point, just past the bridge, that is where it's starting to do that transition to going down 1%. So let's go with that. Alright. First thing we have to do is check for any more gradient adjustment points between here and there. Got one. That might be able to be deleted, though. Oh, wait, actually. Why do we have that adjustment point there? That's not for track, is it? Is that for a scenery object? One sec. Let me manipulate that and see what happens. The fuck? What is that? It is for some kind of scenery object, it looks like. Alright, well I just deleted it. Alright, let's open up the... Ooh, actually, we might have gradient points exactly where we need them. That would be nice. But we'll check. Let's open up Google Maps. Is it? Oh yeah. I think that's where I wanted my... Yeah, so literally right there. Yeah, wow. That is extremely convenient. Hey J Diz, thanks for joining. Thanks for the compliments. Okay, so wow, that's really cool. We're gonna do the same thing. Find out what the track height is at this point. So based on the charts, right at this point, it should be, I don't know, it's below 80 feet, that's for sure. Maybe like 78? Let's take a look at Google Earth and see what that says. 77. Okay. And then it starts going down kind of rapidly. Alright, so let's go with 77 and see what that turns up. We should still have a downward decline of 0.3%. So 23.46. I'm just going to round that up to 23.5. Going to set the terrain to 0.5 meters less than that, so 23 even. Bring that down. Gonna click L, click L, click L, click L. Now if I highlight over, it's still at 0.3, so we're still going down at the same rate. Excellent. Let's just adjust this. And this is inevitable, this kind of stuff. They've already been placing scenery. Some of it's going to collide with new track values. It's just inevitable. Just have to move things down. That's kind of the drawback of not having all the track completed before you do scenery. When I was hired to do Washington to Baltimore, my contractual obligation was to have all of the track done by mid-October. And the route, as you know, was released in December. So that gave plenty of time for all the scenery guys and all that to do their work. Ideally, all the track gets done first, but because we got so many people in on this and we got so little time and this isn't our full-time jobs, I couldn't spend as many hours on the track as I had done for that project. So, anyway. Okay, so now I need to figure out where this vertical curve ends. And it's a rather long vertical curve, I'm kind of surprised. But, hey, I'll go with it. I don't know if it's accurate, but it could be. It is kind of a drastic change in downward slope. So same thing, if I just put my mouse cursor there, mouse wheel up, it's just after the Pulaski Highway undergrade bridge. Okay. So if we look at Google Earth, just past the Pulaski Highway. Is that what this road is? I'm guessing Route 40? Come on, Google, tell me. Yes, Pulaski Highway. Okay. So right after, that's a subjective term. I'm just going to go with one cat pole after. Alright. Or we could keep it simple and just reuse the weld points that are currently at the beginning of the curve. Because I don't really like doing transitions over weld points. It can cause the track to separate. Maybe I'll show you that. So we'll just mess with one track right now. Alright, let's just go with the cat pole thing. Just one cat pole after. I'm gonna place a gradient adjustment point right there. Gonna get the height at that point. 69 feet. Is that correct? Yes. Well, actually 70 feet. So we're gonna go with 70. 21.33 minus 0.5 is 20.83. Gonna set that as the terrain value, 20.83. Snap that point to that. Alright. So now I need to create a transition from this weld point, this gradient adjustment point to that one, to just before that one. So right there. And let's see. Let's see if I got any separation at the weld. And I did not. That's actually really good. Sometimes when you try to do smooth gradient over a weld, it separates, like I said. We got lucky there. So it's kind of hard to see with all this terrain in the way. Let me lower everything really low. Let me just set it to like 15 just so we can see what's going on here. And then I'll show you the transition from going downhill at 0.32 to now going downhill at just over 1%. We can test this out in a little bit. Alright. So if we look, we got all these gradient points. That's part of the smoothing process. You can see at the weld, it kind of did some stuff where it made two really close to each other like that. Sometimes that can result in a bump, but we'll test it out. So we start right here, and at this point everything's normal. We're going down at 0.3. As I move my mouse down, we're going 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8. Still 0.8. Ah. Trying to think. It should be going down more than that. We needed that number to be 1%, not 0.7 or 0.8, whatever. So what we need to do is lower this even more. So 21.33 is too high. So let's erase the gradient points. And that's easier said than done. You gotta really trust the undo tool. Or do a lot of manual click and delete type crap. So let's just get to where we started, which was right here. And you can see it inadvertently added the gradient point at that weld. It might be fine, whatever. Alright, so if we bring this down a little bit, you can see at this point we're now going down at 1.1. It's a little too much. Bring it up a little bit. Still 1.1. I want it to just read 1%. Yep, 1%. So we're just off a little bit. Alright, let's do our smoothing. Same thing. Just gonna start beforehand. Bring it down to just before that point. Right about here. Smooth. You can see all those points. Right about this point is where it gets to that 1% mark, which is good. It seems to be smoothed properly. So let's test this out. I like testing this kind of stuff out as we go. Obviously we're gonna have the gap here. I mean, a really big jolt here. You can see the track is bent. Because we haven't... Actually, we can do this really quick. Let's just find out where this 1.05% downward slope ends. And then we can just manually drag the track down for that one. Right before the signal bridge. Okay, I can do that. That's another thing you'll run into. You'll see the track bend here, and you won't see a gradient adjustment point. So if you just left click and then press delete, it'll delete whatever the game thinks is there. And it happens quite frequently. There we go. So where's the signal bridge? Just gonna turn on the overlay. Signal bridge is right here, so right before the signal bridge, approximately right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a gradient adjustment point and then just drag it down until it reads 1%. Almost there. We'll fine-tune this one later. I just want to do it for testing purposes. Just to show you, to see if the ride quality is smooth. Okay, up to this point, anyway. Alright, so now we got that. Good all the way to here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save, hop into the scenario editor. Actually, I think we might already have a train down on 3-track heading in this direction, so we'll test that out. double check that there's actually a train down here. Memory serves me right, there is. Ah, look at that. Alright, I'll hop in the scenario editor. So during these little playtests, I'm making sure that there are no unusual bumps. Alright, so the driver is in the right spot. Play. Okay. I want to turn on the heads-up display so I can see the gradient changes. Just get up to speed really quick. We'll zoom in a little bit so we can maybe notice the gradient changes. This is all still Washington to Baltimore track. Right at the end of the straightaway is where we get to the track that we started laying as part of this project. So the track speed should pick up to 60 right after here. We're looking for any noticeable bumps. I'll even zoom in a little bit more. So we're going downhill at 0.1%. We should start transitioning to going downhill to 0.3, right about here. And we are. We're now at 0.3. We're going into the curve. That little jolt right there was just normal for entering a curve. Still going downhill at 0.3. Coming up to the point where we go down even steeper. Right about here. So, yep, we're transitioning to going down 1%. It's kind of weird seeing us go below the other tracks. Alright, now we're going down 1%. Extremely smooth. And this is where I stopped the progress. So you'll see a noticeable bump here. There we go. Look at that. That went smooth. I'm just gonna get the train out of there. Alright. Go back into the editing. Cool. Train should be back where it was. And we can bring those other tracks. Oops. Where the hell am I? Alright, there we go. I lost my bearings for a sec. So now that we know that track 3 rides really good, we're gonna want to do all of the same thing to the other 3 tracks. Like the exact same thing. I don't even know what this is. Just that random invisible loft. I'm not sure what that was. Oh, just so you guys know, me messing with the terrain and having it screw up the scenery work and everything, none of my terrain changes that I'm doing right now are going to be merged into the master copy, only track changes. So terrain will go back the way it was, and you can adjust everything with the terrain and the scenery afterward. So don't worry. Okay. So these points were all good at 23.5. Now, the point, where was the point where I started adjusting it down? Right here, right? No, here. That was the transition beginning point. And then, where did I have it? One cat pole after? Right here. So we're gonna do 1, 2, 3. And I think I can just click L, click L, click L. And they should all... Actually, no, one sec. I can't do that. I have to adjust the terrain first. So we have this point at 21.10, so I have to set the terrain to 20.6. Remember, 0.5 below. So I'm going to do that. Let's bring up the terrain. Scroll down. Left click L, left click L, left click L. Wonderful. So now we'll do the same thing that we did for track 3 on these other 3 tracks. And we'll do it all at once. And I'm not going to test all these tracks right now. I'm going to trust that they're good for now. But if during playtesting, people find, oh, there's like a really bad friggin' bump there. Oh, actually, here's the thing. Because we're using the select tool, and we have to go right before the next gradient point. When you're using the select tool, the gradient points move. So what I like to do, and this is just personal preference, is just throw an object down right where the welds, I keep saying welds, the gradient points are. So I'll center my camera like right on top of one, go to the object tools menu, just pick a random object, I don't know, bench. I'll just chuck it right there. So now go back here, select, drag, just before the bench. And then hit the smooth gradient, get rid of the bench. So now if I hover my mouse over one of these tracks, going downhill at 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, 0.6, it's a gradual, slow transition. And now you're going full-blown downhill at 1%, which is pretty steep. They don't really like to do that too much anymore. Try to be less than 1% if at all possible. So now let's revisit this point, because I don't even know if this was even accurate, this height at this location. So let's find out exactly where this is by pulling up the overlay. Alright, so, oh yeah, I did one cat pole before the signal bridge. Let's hop into Google Earth. Where's the signal bridge? Oh, right there. So one cat pole before. Google Earth is saying approximately 62 feet. Just want to see what that is. 18.89, and I made this 19.06. Is 19.06 close enough? Yeah, 62 and a half. It was popping around between 62 and 63, so I'm fine with 62 and a half. That's perfect. Turn off the overlay. Move some of this terrain down to get it out of my way. Gonna make the rest of these have the same value. So for 19.06, you gotta subtract 0.5, and you'll get 18.5, oops, not 08, 18.56. Set that as the level. Left click L, left click L, left click L. I'll even do that for this other track. There we go. Going downhill pretty quick. Wonderful. Alright, let's save. Take another sip of my tea. Any questions so far? Takes a little getting used to. But once you got it, you got it. Alright, so now we have another transition. This one is about as long as the last one, and we're transitioning not to going as steep anymore. So we're going pretty... Here, let me clean this up. We're going pretty steep downhill at this point. And we are right here now. So now it's starting to shallow back out. And you can see after this vertical curve, we'll be going 0.38 downhill. So pretty similar to what we were doing beforehand. All right. We already know this point. That's where we're at right now. Let's find out where this point is, the end of the vertical curve. So if I scroll up... Ooh, it's... Oh, goes a train. Right before the overhead bridge at 92.09, which is the overhead bridge right after the signal bridge. Let's find out where that is. That is right here. That is the CSX bridge. So that is the end of the vertical curve. And what is the value there? 57 feet, according to Google Earth. Take a look. In game. I mean on the charts, sorry. And then we'll go back to the game. So right at that point, if I know that this line is 70 feet, this line is 90 feet, this line is 50 feet, so it's a little below halfway. I can believe 57. Maybe even like 58. I'll go with 57 and a half. 17.52, so I'm gonna create gradient points there and get them to that height. So right here, let's see if there's any other gradient points in the way. There are not, so that's fortunate news. Gonna click and drag. Can't see what I'm doing, but hopefully that worked. Nope, it did not work. That was a colossal failure. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to lower the track, just so I can see what I'm doing. I mean, lower the terrain so I can see the track. So right under the bridge, huh? Click, drag, 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 release. Set the terrain height to 17.02 because we want the track to be at 17.52. Click L, click, and press L. Do a quick snap to... Alright. So, if I look at the gradient points, they're in the right spot, right under the bridge, and then right at this spot, it's showing at... It's going to be going at... Wait, what? 1 second. That's interesting. I'm just looking at the percentage that it's going down. Just seems too much. Let's look on the next page of the charts. Alright, so it's going down at 0.38 for a long ass time. Like, we're talking pretty much just before milepost 91. Okay. What I'm concerned... Actually, let's figure that out. Where that point is. Right by milepost 91. It's quite a ways. Set the terrain to 0. So I can see what I'm doing. I was expecting to see a lower percentage at that point, but it didn't work out that way. Let's look at Google Earth to see exactly where milepost 91 is. Hey Martin, yeah, thank you for the compliments. Yep, definitely go back and watch this. They're all archived, so if I'm going a little bit too fast or whatever, I'm trying to just get through it and just do it repetitively so it clicks. But yeah, definitely go back and watch it sometime. So right before milepost 91 is right over here. So I want it to be going downhill at like 0.4 at that point. So if I get this part good, I can work my way back. Okay. So the charts say that at that point... So the scale might change for the gradients, like what numbers these lines represent might change on other pages. So you can't just keep going with the same scale in mind. At this point, I'm assuming that this line isn't, it means 40. It looks like it's at 37 or 36. Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry. I want to look at where the adjustment starts. Yeah, that looks to be like 37 feet. And that point, can't tell exactly, but it's right before milepost 91. I don't know how far before it. I'll just say 2 cat poles, and we'll go with 37. Or, actually, in this case, 3 cat poles. 1, 2, 3. So 3 cat poles, 37 feet. Alright, so 11.27. Just keep flattening this just so I can see what I'm doing. Just gotta figure out where milepost 91 is. Alright, so I should see the trains down there. Alright. Oh, so it's further this way. Okay. Is that what I'm seeing? Yep. Okay, so let's figure out exactly where I am. Alright, so 1 cat pole, 2 cat poles, 3. Okay. So right here. Right here is going to be approximately 11.27. I'm going to set my terrain to be 10.77. Click L. Alright. So I know that from this point back to where we were, the downhill slope should be 0.4. So I'm looking for the next gradient point that has been generated. I'm getting pretty lucky. It hasn't been generating them on welds, which is actually really fortunate. Wow, we're back to where we were. Shit, that's really fortunate. So it is 0.4 when I look at this. So from this point on, it is 0.4. Okay, so let's see if I can get this smoothed properly. Let's place an object down. I'm just not convinced it's going to smooth properly. Try it on one track first, just in case it screws up. I don't know if that worked right. Nope. Trying to think of how to work through this. So basically the dilemma is right at this point, it's adjusting straight up to 0.4, which is good. I want it to be, but I want this side to be gradually going down to 0.4 as well. I can try incorporating past this point, and maybe that'll make it smooth properly. I don't know. I really don't know. Let's try it. Go past the barrel a little bit. That worked. 0.9, 0.8, 0.7, 0.6, 0.5, 0.4. And now it's continuing at a steady 0.4. Ooh, wonderful. Okay. So I just had to go past that point, and then it incorporated all of that into what it's now staying at. Perfect. Wonderful. So let's test that out. I'm gonna bring up the scenario again, and I'm gonna just throw the train like right here so we don't have to go through all the other rigmarole. See if that goes nice and smooth. The down to 1% and then back up to going down at 0.4%. Alright, save, go into scenario editor. And if it goes smooth, then I will do the same thing for the other tracks. I find it's good to test as you go, even if it's just on one track. Because trying to go back and correct issues is a bitch on this. So I try to minimize it. Top in here, forward, full speed ahead. So at this point, we're still going down 0.3%. At some point into the straightaway, we're going to transition to going downhill even more, 1.05%. And then part of the way through the curve, it's going to shallow out a bit and still go downhill, but only at 0.4%. Okay, so it's going to start transitioning to going downhill more, and it is. It's now at 1% going downhill. Gotta keep an eye on the speed. And it should start shallowing out, and it is. And now we're going downhill at 0.4, and that was really smooth. It's hard to even tell that you were making those changes. Great. This is awesome. So here the Acela would be picking up speed. I think after those reverse curves you get up to 110 or something. I don't know. Okay. We can keep the train there, because this track's good. We're gonna do the same approach. Gonna get down to this point. Gonna bring all of these tracks down to that same value, 11.27. Do that by flattening the terrain below the track to a set value. It's 0.5 meters below what you want the track to be. Left click the gradient adjustment point, press L. Click L, click L. And you can highlight over all this and see that they're all at 11.27, sorry. Right. So now work our way back. Delete any gradient points you can delete. The reason being is we know that all of this track going all the way up there is at a constant rate of descent. There aren't going to be any changes, so minimize the number of points that you have to screw with. This one is on a weld, and we cannot delete it. So what you do... Ooh, first off, let me save. Because you may have noticed there was a little bit of a stutter in the frame rate. There is a memory leak in this game when it comes to gradient adjustment. If you don't frequently go into the gradient adjustment tool and then hop out of the tool and do saves and stuff, your memory is going to fill up to the point where the game crashes, and you have the potential of losing progress. So I'm constantly hopping in and out of the gradient adjustment tool. I'm not manipulating... Another train going by. I'm not manipulating all these points for an extremely long time because of that memory leak. You found a fix to that memory issue, Ocean State Railfan? Alright, let everybody know, it might be useful. Alright, so in order to get this point to where I need it to be, I'm going to reference the track that's already good. And I'm looking, and it's 11.83 is the height of the track at this point. So I'm just going to do the same trick with the terrain. So 11.83 minus 0.5 is 11.33. Just do that. Click on the point, L, and it's doing that little separation thing. Click L, and there we go. Now this is all nice. Alright, let's keep going. Just looking for the next gradient point, and it's this one. Perfect. So we're gonna get all the other tracks set first, and then we'll do the smoothing. So let's go back. I'm not going to touch the rail yard, because freight yards tend to be at different heights, and I'm not going to mess with that right now. I'm only concerned with mainline operations right now. Okay. So on track 1, let's find the next gradient point. Just following it along. Doesn't appear that there is one. Just goes all the way up to here. Okay. But there are some on track 1. That much I know for sure. So all these tracks at this point should be at the same height. 16.88, 16.88, 16.88. These are all perfect. So let's get this track down to that point as well. 16.88 minus 0.5 is 16.38. Level. Click L. It's unfortunate that we have all these gradient points, but it's okay. We did that on purpose. Kinda. We're gonna delete as many as we can. We've got 2 left. That's fine. So, same deal. 16.62. Gonna subtract 0.5. 16.12. Level the terrain. Back into the point. Left click L. And if it separates, make sure you don't select more than 1 point. Click L. Okay. And finally, right here. Luckily, I laid tracks 1 and alpha in tandem, so these weld points match up. It just so happens that this particular weld point got a gradient point assigned to it, and this one didn't. No rhyme or reason to it. It's probably some weird internal editor thing, but I don't care. Alright, 16.19 minus 0.5 is 15.69? I think? I want to double check. 16.19 minus 0.5. Yes, 15.69. Mental math is not my strongest suit, but I'm working on it. Best I can. Okay, great. So now all these should be going... Oops, did I miss gradient points? I did. I can delete that one, though. If it's not on a weld, and it got generated for some reason, it can usually be deleted without consequence. This one is on a weld, so I have to go with it. That's fine. Just gonna approximate where this lines up. Actually, one sec. If you don't want to approximate, kinda figure it out. Just clearing the way so I can work easier. So I can click the point, and I can drag it down to where I can compare it to this other track. So when it was high up there, I couldn't really compare where the point was. So 12.33 is our value we're looking for. So we're gonna do 11.83. Left click, L. There we go. So let's just do a little bit of cleanup. Gonna increase the brush size. Just doing a little bit of snapping. Just to clean it up a bit. Ooh, a little bit laggy. Get out of that tool. Go back in. Doesn't have to be crazy. Just to see everything better for now. Alright, there we go. So now all these tracks should be 100% good up to milepost 91. It's a lot of work. It really is. And I hope you guys see now why I recommended that the switch points not be included before doing this. Because for every switch point, I would have to... Well, that would be more welds. And more welds would be more gradient adjustment points. So, want to get the core of the track laid and sloped properly first, and then later on... Here, I'll show you real quick. So let's just assume... Actually, I can't use the tool here because the tracks aren't parallel. I can do it here, though. So these two tracks are parallel, and they're going downhill at the same rate. But they are sloped. And once we get everything sloped properly, you're going to be able to make crossovers as simple as this, assuming the two tracks are parallel. Crossover tool, track. It detects that they're parallel, hence the red line. Boom. But the problem is, not all the time does it get like this kind of stuff right. So you'll have to manually manipulate these points, which kind of sucks. I had to do a lot of that for Washington to Baltimore, but it's really not that bad. Generated fine here. This one needs adjustment a little bit. So what you do, just create a point, delete the second one that automatically got made. It's hard to see. And you gotta manually just manipulate it a little bit at a time. And it's so hard to click on the friggin' thing because the game wants to select another track. The other alternative is finding the exact terrain height here and doing that level trick that I've been showing you all afternoon. But that can't be relied on as much because we're dealing with such small distances and the game only goes 2 decimal points on these. So just mess with it in little increments until you don't see that little separation anymore. See, separation's gone now. So you'll have to do things like that in order to smooth out the crossovers. Here, I'll do this one just as another little example. Get it to right about this point, just manually place one of those. Delete that extra one that gets generated. See? Still got a little bump there. can fine-tune this a little bit. And we're talking like minute mouse movements. Like even that was too much. There we go. That's good. There won't be any bump from that. But that's the kind of shit that you're gonna have to go through with crossovers, unfortunately. But that crossover, even though it doesn't exist on this line at all in real life, it would be fine. Alright, let's hope I can undo all that shit. There we go. Cool. So that will be the switch part later. Just do your switches like normal, and then manually correct any height deficiencies that appear in the crossover generation. This one's sloping down a little bit more than the others, maybe because the track isn't as high. I don't know. It just changes from 0.4 to 0.5. It doesn't truly matter. It's not gonna have a bump or anything. But if during testing you do find it has a bump, what you can do to smooth out an individual point that's bumpy, like let's say there was a noticeable bump when you took a train on here, right at that point, what you do is just create a small section, and it doesn't even have to be that long because it's such a minute change. Just use the select tool, select a small section, and then use smooth gradient, and that'll smooth that right out. And you can see what it did. Just be careful though, because sometimes on welds, didn't do it here, got lucky. Sometimes on welds, when you do use the smooth gradient tool over a weld, it will create a visual separation. Like, here, I'll just undo what I just did, and I'll show you what I mean by what it could possibly do. Ah, shit. Like that. See that right there? That's what it'll do. So you gotta be very, very careful when you are smoothing gradients over welds. So, just be very, very cognizant of that. Let me get this back the way it was. Okay. Let's save. Any questions? I think I've gotten the point across. I only meant for this stream to be like an hour and a half long, and we are coming up on that. This was more of a teaching session for Evan and the other guys. But I'll address any specific questions or concerns now. I'll even continue down a little bit while you guys think of some questions. I asked Evan to prepare some questions, but I don't know, I guess he just doesn't have any? Which is fine. I mean, if it makes perfect sense to you, then it's fine if you don't have a question. I was just looking for a little bit more engagement from the audience, if possible. So, you guys think. I'll continue working a little bit. Okay, so this is our next vertical curve transition. So we are right before milepost 91. We are right here. Oh, it's going to go even. That's fortunate. So it's going to go from downhill to going perfectly flat. You don't see that too often on the railroad. Evan, yeah, I understand, man. Yeah, school definitely comes first. If any questions pop up when you rewatch the stream later, definitely, just hit me up. Good luck with that 7-page paper. I don't miss that kind of crap at all. Alright, so we got this other vertical curve. We're going to go to perfectly level. We already know where the vertical curve starts. That's where we were, right here. Vertical curve ends. Ooh, there goes another train. Right at the south side of North Point Road Bridge. Undergrade Bridge. Okay, so let's find that bridge. Ah! Is this the bridge? So literally, like, right here. Would it be at milepost 91 then? Like, exactly? If I kept scrolling up? Look at that. Pretty much right at 91. This is all approximate, by the way. It's not perfect. So... where is that bridge? Exactly. Right here. The scenery object is kind of throwing me off. I'm just deleting it for now. My scenery and terrain changes aren't making it into the master copy, so don't freak out if I'm deleting your work. Just gonna flatten this terrain a little bit so I can see what I'm doing. Okay. Just reference the documents again. Yeah, pretty much right at the bridge. Okay. I'm just gonna take a wild guess and say right here. No weld points nearby, which is nice. Cool. So I'm gonna make gradient point. Let's get the height. At this point, the height is, based on Google, sorry, I'm just deep in thought, 35 or so feet, and then it stays 35 feet, 34 feet, 34, 35 feet. Let's try to figure out a little bit more precisely based on the documents. So we've got... The documents are showing it more like 36. Alright, let's go with 35, though. Even though the... Shit, it's kind of hard. Because didn't I already place these at... No, I laid it at 37. I'm gonna go with 35. 10.66, I'm going to put the terrain at 10.16. I mean, we'll see how this works out. I don't know, this road doesn't look right for some reason. Is that the right street? Just want to make sure I have the right street. Yeah. Yeah, I got the right bridge. Okay. So 10.16. That should be resting at 10.66 now, so let's just see. Where the next weld is. So the next weld, or not next weld, next gradient adjustment point could be on a weld, and it is on a weld. Does that fall within the spot where it's flat? No. So somewhere along the curve, it slopes down again. Where is that? Signal bridge. The signal bridge at the south limits of point interlocking. Okay. I want to mark that. Oh, actually, no, we're good, we're good. So right here is going to be our next transition. Just want to mark that. Which means that this previous gradient point is going to be at the same height as the last one, because there's no elevation change. 10.16. Flatten that down. Click. L, click L. So now, when I hover over the track, it should show gradient of 0.0%, and it is. Excellent. Okay. So we're transitioning from 0.4 all the way to flat. The start of said transition is back there, the end of it is here. So I'm going to place a reference object, just so I know where that is. I'm going to get rid of the overlay. Alright, that's fine. I don't want to go to the weld, though. I want to go a little bit past this, but not to the weld, so that'll be fine. Start right here, click, select, bring it all the way down to like right here, and we will smooth gradient. Take a look at how that came out. So going down 0.4. Ooh. It's a little unexpected result. It's a very fast transition. Actually, that's okay. I want to see how that rides, though. And then right here, it's completely flat. Alright, so let me just put this terrain down a little bit so I can see, and then I'll do a little test. I'm assuming this is the signal bridge that I marked. No. It's not the signal bridge. What's that? Wait a minute. I'm getting confused by the Google Maps overlay. One sec. Oh yeah, so right there. Oh yeah, I was just marking my next transition point. Okay. So I think at that point, yeah, at that point, it should still be the same height. 10.16. Terrain height, that is. Get rid of this overlay. This is going to be a weird one because I'll be doing some height transitioning in the middle of an interlocking, but it's not going to be a problem for now. There's another one of those invisible points. Make sure you get rid of those as they generate. I don't know why they generate, but they do. Cool, so now all this is perfectly flat up to the beginning of the interlocking, at which point it will go downhill again. I'm gonna leave that alone. Just do a quick test on this one, and then I think I'm going to call the stream, because I think I got my point across in teaching everybody how to do this process. So let's get rid of the barrel. I want to take a closer look at this one. I'm just a little concerned at how this one generated. 11 point... That's fine. A little strange, but it's fine. Okay. Save. I do want to look up really quick the track speed after we get through the reverse curves at Bay. I think it's 120. Because I want to accelerate at the right spot and go through these transitions at speed. That's how you do the proper testing. So Washington to Philly. So after the reverse curve at Bay, 110. Sorry. Okay, so I've done up to this point. and it happens to be the south limits of point interlocking. So this is where I stopped. This is all flat, and this is where it starts transitioning back down again. You can actually kind of see, if you look in the distance, it's sloping down a little bit. So we'll be doing, well, whoever continues doing this process will do that next. Okay, but it is 110. That's what I wanted to check. Get back to the train. Okay. Just testing for ride quality. That's all we're doing with this. And I think we have all these curves super elevated, so super elevation shouldn't be a concern. Going downhill at 0.3%, somewhere in the straightaway before the next curve. It's going to transition to going down at 1%, and then shallow out a little bit. Maintain that for a little while, and then go perfectly flat, up until point interlocking. So we should be starting that downward transition to 1%. It's going to shallow out and settle it going downhill at 0.4%, so we're going through that transition now. Now we're at 0.4% going downhill, almost through the reverse curve. Once the train clears the reverse curve, I'll start accelerating to 110. So I'm going to keep an eye on that. Right about here, I'll start accelerating. Alright, we'll leave it at that for a little while. So this is still constant, and we're going to be transitioning to even momentarily. I just want to see how this feels. Oh, that felt fine. So now it's even. Great. And this is where I left off, at the south limits of point interlocking. It's about to get bumpy. So yeah, that is how you do gradient adjustment. And hopefully you get rid of all those bumps. Nice and smooth. Alright, I'm going to hand this back over to Evan, and if any of the other guys, Evan, want to try their hand at this, maybe they weren't confident with the actual track laying, and now that most of the track is laid, they want to still contribute a little bit with the track, they can definitely help out with this. Just reference this video in order to learn the process. If anybody, including yourself, has any questions about this process, or maybe you think something got messed up or whatever, just reach out to me. I can help you out. There's really nothing that you can screw up that can't be corrected somehow. Any questions before I end the stream? Then I'm going to package up the route and send it back to Evan and Calvin and all those other guys. Yeah, that's fine. If you're busy next week, that's totally cool. Yeah, they can contribute. I just wanted you to know that it's something easier than track laying itself that other people can help out with. Hey, Mike. Yeah, I'm actually ending the stream right now, so you can go back and watch it. I knew this one was going to be rather short, an hour and a half approximately, and we're at an hour 35 now. All I did was just go through the whole process for adjusting track elevations, and we went. How far do we go? Like 3 miles or so of track elevations, starting from where the project began. You can definitely go back and watch it, and hit me up if you have any questions. Alright, so if there's nothing else, I'm going to end the stream. Thank you everybody for watching. Keep tuning in whenever I do a stream or whenever Evan does a stream. This project is really coming along, especially with things like the scenery. That's starting to ramp up. My vision for this is once the mainline track elevations are done, I want to talk to Evan about opening the route up for some public playtesting. I know a couple people on the inside are going to be doing some playtesting. I don't know if 2 people or 3 people will be enough to test all the tracks and switches in every direction from Philly to Baltimore. That's a lot of track to test. So might be looking to get some more people involved in the testing to see if it's smooth and the ride quality's nice. Alright. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you for watching again.